Hello and welcome to the 8 News Now Investigator streaming show. Up in the 8 News Now Investigator streaming center, I'm Kyle Paine, along with investigative journalist Vanessa Murphy. Vanessa hosts High Heels and Hidden Truths every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. New time.
That's right.
7:30. Excellent show, showcasing in a little bit more depth some of the fine work that you do. And every Monday at 7:30, we do this show here, showcasing some of the hard work we do on a regular basis.
I like how you called this the 8 News Now Investigator streaming center. Like we just took this over.
Ours.
It's
ours. Today it's ours. I think this should be red, like our colors on the television show. For our show, but
it's a work in progress.
I just work here and barely at that. So today, as you see on the bottom of our screen, we're talking about a DAAY Court success story. DAAY standing for detention for alcoholic.
No, detention alternative for autistic youth court.
I wasn't close.
So we'll say it again. Detention alternative for autistic youth court. DAAY Court. And I have to point out, Kyle, when I initially did this story, they were saying DAAY Court, and I really thought it was DAAY Court. So my apologies, but it is DAAY.
And it focuses on kids with autism or who may have fetal alcohol syndrome.
That's right.
And so you met a young person who ultimately had a struggle and was in this program and was adopted.
Yeah, so we were informed that there was a success story.
Right, which we don't get to deal with very often.
We don't. When we are in juvenile court, some background, right?
Right.
When we're in juvenile court, we're usually there for very serious cases. I know you've covered a custody case. Usually it's a place most people don't want to go.
No,
you don't want to go
us.
to that building.
Yeah.
And so there's a vibe, right? Many times it's young kids, it's teens in trouble in these courtrooms. The judges have some really tough decisions to make. But in this case, we heard there was a success story. So our photojournalist, Chris Benka, went to a event, and then I put that story together. So he was there, he did the interviews, and then I put the story together. And we really appreciate getting a heads up about the story.
Yes, and he did a wonderful job, and we're going to see that story. But I think it's also important to point out when we watch this how unusual it is in another vein, which is that we don't usually get to show people in this courthouse, at least not the young people.
That's right.
Because they're juveniles, there are rules with regard to that. So all the rules were essentially thrown out the window because this is good news.
Right.
And they gave us a very nice invitation. They sort of opened all the doors for you and for Chris. And we're going to watch that now?
Sure.
Yeah, let's watch that now. It's good.
You do solemnly affirm that the evidence you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
This is a room where most children and teens don't want to be. Juvenile court. But
At this time, it is ordered that
a teen nicknamed Gold gets a round of applause.
I thought it was going to be stressful, but I was just mostly very excited.
It was a long,
a lot of family trauma,
tough road.
A lot of abuse.
Gold landed here.
It was just stressful.
Through a juvenile delinquency case and the child welfare system.
Family who always comes, but then they leave and then don't come back for a week, just leaving me home. It was just basically pretty hard to stay out of trouble because I've been through a lot of bad influence and stuff, which kept just making it worse.
In this program, which began in 2018 with Clark County District Judge Sonny Bailey.
We have so many youth out there who have not been appropriately diagnosed.
Through state legislation, resources are set aside to make this a therapeutic court for children who may be on the autism spectrum or who may have fetal alcohol syndrome.
Well, we do know that one at a time, we're making a difference. And so we've graduated over 128 youth since the start of our program.
Gold graduated DAAY Court in 2024, the same year for a new foster home.
We always wanted to be parents, the both of us, and it's two men. That doesn't come easily.
Kiernan and Matthew found a special connection with Gold.
tugged at our heartstrings.
Matthew's a volunteer with the program.
Gold was definitely in a behavioral rough patch.
From teaching Gold to read and to regulate emotions, the couple worked with the teen alongside a team from the Clark County District Attorney's Office
Stakes are really high.
to juvenile probation.
Get buried in this environment, and you become jaded, so to speak. And so when you do have successes, you have to celebrate it. And today is a fantastic celebration.
A celebration and the first of its kind here in DAAY Court,
Sky's the limit.
as the couple formally adopts Gold and they become a forever family.
The court has signed the decree of adoption. You are officially now adopted. Congratulations.
Vanessa Murphy,
Funny thing, my mind was thinking of my future, like what I'm gonna do in the future.
8 News Now.
That's nice. The future, 128 youths going through that program. He's one of them, or they are one of them. What do you say after watching that?
What do you mean?
Well, we've both been in that courtroom.
Yeah.
And I've never obviously seen a round of applause.
Yeah.
And, that youth is dealing with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The parents were put through a lot.
Yeah.
Hard to get to that phase. And I know there were reactions that you didn't like on the internet from that, even though it's a tremendously uplifting story.
Well, when I was going through these interviews after Chris, our photographer, brought them back, I'm going through Gold's interview, and Gold is saying Gold went through abuse and neglect and was left alone at home for a very long time. It just breaks my heart. And
yeah, it seemed like Gold was going through it. They said a behavioral rough patch. And we have a lot to talk about in the remaining minutes here, including some additional work that Vanessa did, and we will watch that on the other side of this break. Welcome back to The Investigators. I'm Kyle Paine, along with investigative journalist Vanessa Murphy. Vanessa, before we went to the break, we were talking about Gold and their struggles through the program and how uplifting that is. But it's also it's a different story.
It's a different story, and I think what stood out is there are 2 men adopting Gold.
Oh, right.
And that got some attention on YouTube.
Right. So we publish these stories on our website.
Yes.
They go on YouTube.
Yeah.
Often they make their way through social media and other people pick them up. But YouTube in particular has a lot of comments. That's one of the things.
And they're often not kind.
Right. There are trolls out there.
Yeah.
We can be honest about that. And in this case, they were anti the 2 men adopting Gold.
Right. And you know what? There are many people involved in this process, right? You have the DA's office, you have the judge, you have this couple helping this child. It's a success story, and it's sort of unfortunate. I shouldn't say sort of. It is unfortunate when people are saying nasty things about the dynamic of this situation. Look, there's a lot of kids in foster care. There's a lot of kids who need to be adopted. And here are people stepping up to help this child. Are the people on the internet stepping up in the same way, or they just want to complain?
Right. And, the social media comments are nothing new. And what strikes me is that here we are now, we're knee deep in it with the social media and people being able, what they call keyboard warriors or whatever, being able to say what they want and cast whatever judgment. But when you invest yourself in a story like that, whether it's a hard news story or a success story,
right.
It still never ceases to amaze me. And I think also you, even though you're a hardened journalist, that these people keep coming at you. And you're right. If you don't like it, do something about it. I don't think making those kind of comments is the way to go.
It's
especially
not helpful.
No.
And this is a success story, and we're not going to let nasty comments take away from that.
Right.
bottom line.
So as a part of that success story,
Yeah.
a lot goes into this.
Yes.
You mentioned all the different factors, the DA's office, but money is a part of this.
Yeah, so resources have to be set aside in order to do this separate program, the DAAY Court program. Look, when you talk to the individuals who are part of this, they're going to say they never have enough resources.
Right, and that's probably true.
Yes, but in this case, there was some legislation, and State Senator James Orenshaw was part of that. So Chris talked with him.
Judge Bailey and I had seen a lot of children who were ending up in the juvenile delinquency system, who were on the autism spectrum, or who'd been, exposed to alcohol and drugs when their mom was expecting, who never got diagnosed and never got treatment. And this therapeutic court that Judge Bailey has spearheaded gives those kids a chance to get the therapy and the treatment that they need to eventually get their delinquency case dismissed and to really make tremendous changes in their lives. I believe her success rate with the kids that are in her court is above 90% of kids who never come back and never end up in the delinquency court system. So it's very successful, and it really cuts through a lot of red tape and gets kids the treatment they need. A lot of kids have been waiting for years to try to get a neuropsych evaluation, and so often I see kids in Judge Bailey's courtroom be able to get that sped up and get that neuropsych evaluation maybe within 6 months, and then they can start getting the treatment and the therapy they need.
Well, I think that shows me a couple of things. First of all, the access that the court and these people gave to Chris, we don't get to do stories where there are that many interviews, where there are that many people who want to talk to us. And you have a judge that spoke with Chris. You have a lawmaker that spoke with Chris. You have people who adopted who spoke with Chris. You had the star of the show who spoke with Chris. That's fantastic. The other thing, though, is that what he hinted at is that the general demeanor in these situations is not successful. It's not known for its success stories. And you highlight a lot of this in your reporting. The problems in the foster system, the problems in the juvenile court system, the problem with family court. There are a lot. Not to say that it's all bad, but it's not all good.
And it's really tricky because, look, we've covered some major failures, let's say at Child Protective Services. Let's say a family might have a situation where there's a bunch of complaints and they were unsubstantiated, and then something really terrible might happen. We know that CPS workers, the child welfare system, it's not easy. And the goal, right, is for that reunification or to keep a child with their family. But there are some cases like Gold where Gold needed a new family, right?
Yes.
Left alone, abused, neglected, and this couple stepped up.
Right.
But yeah, so you had the state senator talking about the resources, and then we talked with, Chris talked with Judge Sunny Bailey, and she is very proud of this program, and she was beaming at that adoption hearing. Let's hear from her.
This was an incredible opportunity for us today. We actually had a DAAY Court graduate, and he was adopted by his forever family, which is an incredibly momentous occasion for us. He's the first graduate to be adopted. DAAY Court's been going on since 2018, but thanks to Senator Orenshaw and SB 411, it was passed and signed into law by Governor Lombardo. And then last session, SB 140 was signed, and it expanded out to fetal alcohol syndrome. So we were able to do so. And then through grants, we were able to expand out to dependency court, which is child welfare system. So now we've been able to not just do delinquency, we also actually expanded our services to include those in the dependency child welfare system. So hopefully this is not the first youth will be able to find a forever family. We'll be able to expand out and have forever families for more children. It is so important. We have so many youth out there who have not been appropriately diagnosed. And once we are able to get the appropriate diagnoses, whether it be autism, fetal alcohol syndrome, then through the appropriate services, we can get the appropriate services, apply behavioral analysis, mentors, get the school to have proper IEP IEPs. And then through that, we can get opportunities for permanent families, such as appropriate foster care. And then when the foster care comes in, or even reunite them with their own families with the appropriate supports. And then with that, potentially we can reunite or find forever families like we did today. And not only just parents with forever families, we have extended family, which, as you saw in the crowded courtroom today, we're able to obtain that and change lives forever.
Unpacking that soundbite or two from Judge Bailey, you see that it went all the way up to the governor in order to get all of this taken care of through the legislature. Judge Bailey, we know in a completely different context, who, her courtroom is not, let's say, camera friendly for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that the people that we're there for aren't adults. And then, there were so many steps that are required to even just get through one of these. And I think the sad reality is that probably even if they doubled or quadrupled or 10 times the amount of money, you still have so many sad stories.
I have been in her courtroom before for other juvenile cases, or just for several cases, just to keep track of the juvenile court system in a way, or to get a glimpse. And she usually, she gives us the access, but of course we can't show a teen's face or use their name in those situations.
Right, and she's not doing interviews after the fact to discuss the cases like she did here. So that was great. This is just a nice story all around. And when we come back, we'll wrap up our coverage of this DAAY Court success story. Stay with us. Welcome back to the 8 News Now Investigator streaming show. I'm Kyle Paine, along with investigative journalist Vanessa Murphy. Vanessa did a positive story, but that doesn't stop the reporting aspect. So there's some numbers here. There's some details. We heard Judge Bailey earlier say that the DAAY Court had graduated or adopted 128 youths.
Graduated.
Okay. And so, however, there are many, many, many kids in this system at any time, and you have that information.
Yeah. So in the foster care system, 3,400 children.
Wow.
That's just in the foster care system.
At any given time.
Yeah.
Wow.
According to Clark County, 3,400. So look, there's a need to help kids who have been in trouble and have been through the juvenile court system, or they're in the system. And then there's the need for kids who are in the foster system. In this case, Gold, the child, now teen, adopted, was in both, right? Child welfare because things weren't right at home. And then Gold said, look, I got in some trouble. So Gold landed in this DAAY Court program. One of the people who was part of this, a prosecutor, we're going to hear from her.
I am the DA from the Child Welfare Division assigned to Judge Bailey's two courts, NEAT Court and DAAY Court. And so this adoption today happened through the DAAY Court program, and it was a real great thing to be a part of. When you work in child welfare or juvenile delinquency, you see a lot of difficult things. You're working with kids who've gone through really difficult things, parents who've gone through really difficult things. So it can be a really hard job. Days like today, though, seeing this special moment for this child and this family is just really special. It kind of makes it all worthwhile. It's absolutely wonderful. It was kind of incredible. I saw him standing up here with his family, and he has this huge family now. Parents, extended family, grandparents. There was like 15 people up here. And just knowing the situation that he came from, I was the DA on his case for several years now, and I know all of the really difficult stuff he's been through, and placement changes that he's been through, and a lot of instability. So seeing him with this family in his forever home is incredible. It's great. In child welfare cases, what we're really focused on as the DA and what everyone's focused on is safe permanency for the child. And so kids who have significant diagnoses like autism, there can often be a lot of instability. They have a really high level of need. Oftentimes the system has struggled to get the correct services in place. And so being a part of DAAY Court you get that accurate diagnosis, you get those really high-level services. There's a lot of court oversight, and you see a young person start to stabilize because the court is really tackling, and all of the services and team members are really tackling like the underlying issues. And so you see a young person go from a lot of instability, a lot of turmoil, to being in a safe, stable, loving placement, having the supports they need around them, and not just them, but that the family needs around them to keep that young person stable and on the right path. And on the delinquency side, it's an incredible program because, again, we're tackling those underlying issues. So rather than seeing a young person continue to commit delinquent acts and kind of escalate in the system, that's the opposite of what we want to see. We're really meeting their needs, getting to the underlying issues that cause them to be involved in the delinquency system, and you're able to resolve that and they don't return. So for this young man, for example, he successfully completed probation through the DAAY Court program, I think in 2024, and here we are in 2026, and he was adopted and he's doing well, and I can't believe the change that we've seen.
Pretty interesting. And, you know, we sit here and we look at these stories that come across our desks with a very critical eye, and we can dwell on the negative, let's just say sometimes, like it or not, that's how it goes. But in this case, I find it fascinating that Gold is not a young child. Mm-hmm. Gold, is closer to the end of needing of parents, perhaps, although we never necessarily, but, you know, they didn't give up on this person, even though, let's say, they're not 10.
Yeah.
I think that
we all
deserves
need a
mention.
family,
We
Kyle,
do.
and
We need a little love.
and,
That's right.
Yeah. Guidance.
Right. And in this case, lawyers are involved, right? So, and we talked to a lawyer.
Yeah. So, you know, Gold's now adoptive parents had said they had to go through the foster care licensing aspect, which was a little tricky, right? You have to fulfill requirements, do some training. There's a major need, but they got through that. And then there's the adoption process, right? And we talked with an adoption attorney who was there and helped with Gold's case.
We not only have, children, unfortunately, that are involuntarily removed from homes because of neglect, abuse, or maltreatment, but we have kids that are out there without parents, without supervision, who are getting into a lot of trouble, and they become a particularly difficult challenge because, if parental rights have been terminated, these kids are out there without any supervision, no guardians, and the state's doing its best to take care of them. But, fortunately, and this is a rare situation, but for people like Matt and Kieran to say, you know what, we're going to open our homes to a stranger, and not just a stranger, but a stranger with some baggage and a troubled history, to be able to say, we think we can give you the best start in life that's possible. And that's what they've done. Oh, it's remarkable. I mean, he's gone from, a kid without any focus in life, no one paying attention to say, other than the courts and, the people who are paid to step in and watch out for his best interest, to someone who voluntarily stepped forward and said, we're going to make you a part of our family. Let's figure out life together. It's a complete change in this young man. I think most people don't understand how easy it is, and there are some licensing requirements, but for the most part, my fees are covered by the state, and it's not expensive.
And that was attorney Todd Moody. Before that, we heard from Chief Deputy District Attorney Gwyneth Smith talking about juvenile court, what she sees. I want to bring up, Kyle, there was sort of a light moment, even lighter than the happiness in that adoption process, that hearing where Judge Bailey asked Gold, "Are you okay with this?" because they're vegan, and everyone sort of laughed. So I want to say special thank you to Judge Bailey for allowing us that access, and Gold's parents. We really appreciate it.
Vanessa, you brought us into the courtroom. If we couldn't have been there, we were there. We got a very thorough look at this issue, and I think that's an important use of our time up here. We'll be back on next Monday with another edition of The Investigators. Thank you for joining us.